The council said the attack was legal. They said the paperwork was already filed. They said the response would come eventually. Meanwhile, humans buried their dead. Day 1. Day 5. Day 12. The enemy kept attacking. And that's when humanity realized something terrifying. In a civilized galaxy, delay is a weapon. So humans chose the only answer delays cannot stop. Immediate war. War in this galaxy was not chaos. It was procedure. For over 12,000 standard cycles, the Galactic Union had perfected the art of conflict without collapse. Every war followed the same sequence. A declaration filed, a grievance reviewed, a response scheduled. Casualties were capped. Weapons were classified. Entire star systems could burn, so long as they burned within regulations. To the Union, war was not an emotional failure. It was a managed disagreement. Civilizations rose not by strength, but by restraint. The most respected species were not the most powerful. They were the most compliant. They understood that survival depended on order, and order depended on patience. That was how the galaxy remained stable. That was how the galaxy remained slow. Humanity entered this system quietly. Their arrival caused no panic, no alarms, no emergency sessions of the Council. They were catalogued, studied, and filed away like countless others before them. A young species, technologically competent, psychologically concerning. Their historical records were troubling. Thousands of internal conflicts, wars without authorization, battles fought before negotiations were complete, sometimes before they even began. Entire campaigns launched on emotion rather than consensus. The Council classified humanity as culturally volatile. Still, they were allowed to join. After all, many species had violent pasts. Most eventually learned better. Humans, the Union believed, would be no different. They were given access to trade lanes, limited military oversight, a single representative seat in the lower council chambers. And, most importantly, they were taught the rules. Rules of engagement, rules of response, rules of waiting. Human diplomats listened carefully. They nodded. They signed. They agreed. They were told that if they were ever attacked, the system would protect them. Justice, the Council promised, was inevitable. It just took time. For the first few cycles, everything went smoothly. Human colonies expanded slowly along approved vectors. Their fleets adhered to Union patrol routes. Their soldiers trained alongside Allied forces under strict supervision. They were adapting. Then came the incident. A remote human settlement, designated Colony Epsilon 9, sat near a contested border region. The system had little strategic value, no rare minerals, no major trade corridors. Its primary function was habitation. It was attacked without warning. The aggressor was a regional power known for testing limits. They did not declare war. They did not request arbitration. They classified the strike as a localized resource dispute, a legal loophole that allowed for limited force under Union law. Orbital platforms were destroyed. Civilian infrastructure collapsed. Emergency signals flooded the network. Within hours, the human representative stood before the Council. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He followed protocol. He submitted evidence. He filed a grievance. He requested authorization for immediate defensive action. The Council reviewed the data. The attack was deemed unfortunate, but legal. A response would be scheduled. In 90 days, the human representative did not speak at first. Then he asked a single question. Will the attacks continue during the review period? The Council answered honestly. Most likely, yes. That was how the system worked. The Union believed this answer would satisfy them. After all, every other species had accepted it before. What the council did not understand, what they could not understand, was that humans did not experience time the same way. 90 days was not an administrative delay. It was funerals. It was empty homes. It was messages that arrived too late. Humanity did not protest the ruling. They did not argue. They returned home. And for the first time since joining the Galactic Union, humanity stopped asking questions. After the incident at Colony Epsilon 9, the Union began to take a closer look at humanity. They studied humans as carefully as one might study a dangerous animal in a cage. Small, unpredictable, capable of sudden movement that could shatter expectations. Every fleet, every colony, every social system was logged, scanned, and catalogued. The council convened, debating how to integrate such a species without endangering the delicate balance of their bureaucracy. "It is a manageable threat," one senior diplomat said. Yet, another responded, "Their psychological volatility is concerning. Observe their history: wars without sanction, actions without approval. They have the capacity for chaos." Humans themselves were unaware of the full extent of the scrutiny. They were assigned a single representative seat in the lower chambers, permitted to attend meetings and trade discussions. A seat that allowed them to listen, to nod politely, to be ignored. The council provided instructions, as they always did. Do not act without permission. Do not exceed the limits of engagement. All conflicts must be reported and approved. The humans listened. They nodded. They agreed. And then, quietly, they returned to their colonies. Outwardly, they appeared compliant. They followed patrol routes. They adhered to regulations. Their soldiers trained in union-approved methods. Their scientists observed all safety protocols. But there was a subtle difference. A spark that did not go unnoticed by the council's analysts. Humans were calculating. Not with indifference. Not with fear. Not with obedience. They were thinking. Every report filed. Every mission completed, every diplomatic encounter logged into memory. Humans cataloged not only the rules but the gaps, the delays, the loopholes. The council believed it had taught them compliance. In reality, it had taught them patience. And patience was never weakness. When a small border dispute erupted, an insult barely recorded in the official logs, the humans reacted within hours, quietly mobilizing civilian fleets and defensive drones. They did not declare war. They did not seek permission. They did not broadcast their actions. From the outside, it looked like coordination. Efficient, limited, non-lethal, almost polite. But the council noticed. They gathered to discuss the human response. "They moved without approval," one remarked. "Exactly," another said. "And yet, no one was lost. No union laws were broken. It was unprecedented." For the first time, the analysts struggled to categorize human behavior. It was neither reckless nor obedient, neither predictable nor random. Humans acted without waiting. They had joined the system, ostensibly to follow the rules. But the system itself was now being observed through the lens of human patience. And the galaxy, vast and measured, had yet to understand what it had allowed. Because humans were not planning to break the rules. They were simply waiting. Waiting for the moment when following the rules would mean failure. Waiting for the moment when compliance would cost lives. Waiting for the moment when bureaucracy could no longer protect them. And when that moment arrived, the galaxy would not be ready. The galaxy believed it was orderly. It believed in procedure. It believed in rules. Then the attack came. Colony Epsilon 9, far from Union oversight, became a target. A regional power struck without warning, without declaration, without concern. Orbital platforms were obliterated. Communications were severed. Civilians, scattered and vulnerable, could do nothing but flee. The council received reports. They filed them. They promised action. In 90 days. 90 days. By the Council's own measurements, 90 days would pass before any Union-sanctioned response could be executed. By humanity's measurement, 90 days would be a massacre. For the first time, humans realized the Union's rules were a weapon, not a shield. Delay could kill. Procedures could betray. Compliance could cost lives. And humans had a choice. They gathered quietly. Fleet commanders, colony leaders, scientists, and diplomats. Not in the council chambers, not in meetings, not in debates. They met on Epsilon 9's surface, in the shadow of shattered habitats, under a sky that should have belonged to the stars. No one spoke of politics. No one referenced procedure. They asked only one question. What will we do? For hours they debated. They measured risk. They counted the lives already lost. They ignored the rules. They ignored permission. Then they voted. Every hand went up. Every voice agreed. We will respond. Now. No council approval. No formal declaration. No waiting period. Humanity moved. Fleets launched from the outer colonies. Ships small and agile carrying weapons and drones. They struck supply lines. They dismantled orbital defenses. They disrupted communications. Targets were chosen not for glory, not for honor, not for victory, but for efficiency, for protection, for survival. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Reports reached the council. Analysts scrambled. Protocol officers panicked. They are moving without approval, one senior official said. They are effective, another replied. The humans did not care. They did not stop. They did not announce themselves. For the first time, the galaxy realized that humans did not fight for permission. They fought for necessity, for survival, for lives that could not wait for bureaucracy. And as the fleets of humanity moved, the first lesson became clear. The galaxy had never seen war fought like this. Not by the rules, not by chance, by principle, by humans. The Union had never witnessed such audacity. No protocol could account for it. No regulation had prepared for it. Humanity had acted, not in defiance for glory, not in pursuit of conquest, but because waiting would cost lives. They moved without permission. Ships darted through contested space like shards of light. Drones swarmed over enemy platforms, disabling defenses and cutting communications. Targets were calculated with precision. Efficiency prioritized over ceremony, over pride, over honor. The galaxy had a word for it. Chaos. For humans, it was clarity. Colonies coordinated strikes across hundreds of light years. Messages relayed instantaneously through secure networks. Every maneuver planned to save lives, not to score points. Every action was deliberate, decisive, and unavoidable. Union analysts scrambled to understand. They are violating every rule. Yes, a senior officer replied. But they are not losing. The humans' fleets were small, but they moved like a single organism. No authorization, no approvals, no delays. The council watched helplessly as humans reshaped the conflict. And then the other species began to notice. They had expected a fight of honor, of formal declarations. They had expected arguments over borders and trade routes. They had expected the usual pattern of caution. Humans ignored it all. The regional aggressors, long confident in their legalistic advantage, were stunned. They had anticipated resistance. They had not anticipated immediacy. They had not anticipated determination without hesitation. For the first time, a civilization understood what the Union could not teach. Rules did not guarantee safety. Permission did not guarantee protection. Delay could destroy. Humans had not broken the law. They had transcended it. And in that transcendence, the galaxy learned a new definition of power. Not the strongest, not the most numerous, not the most obedient. Power was the courage to act when no one else would. By the time the council convened for an emergency session, humanity's response was already complete. The attackers' supply lines had been neutralized. Orbital platforms were disabled. Communications severed. And yet, not a single civilian life had been lost. The galaxy reeled. Union officers whispered to one another, trying to categorize what had happened. Efficient, one muttered. Terrifying, said another. Humanity did not celebrate. They did not claim victory. They simply reported back. We protected our people. And then quietly they waited, not for approval, not for praise, not for instruction. They waited for the next attack. Because in a galaxy that valued procedure above all else, humanity had revealed a truth that could not be ignored. If humans are involved, the rules do not apply. The galaxy had expected delay. It had expected hesitation. It had expected compliance. But humanity had acted. Reports poured in from all corners. Union analysts could barely process the speed and precision of human action. Enemy fleets were immobilized. Supply lines dismantled. Orbital defenses neutralized. And not a single civilian had been lost. Every other species watched in disbelief. They had studied humans, calculated risk, and assumed predictability. They had expected chaos, yes, but not this. Not efficiency. Not courage. Not resolve. On massive observation platforms, diplomats and military commanders whispered to one another. They didn't ask for permission. And they succeeded. Shock turned into fear. Fear turned into fascination. The humans themselves did not celebrate. They did not boast. They did not announce victory. They simply stood together, quiet and resolute. The council convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species demanded answers. How did they manage this? How can they move without authorization and succeed? The analysts tried to categorize, to rationalize. But human behavior defied their algorithms. It was neither reckless nor random. It was neither legal nor illegal. It was necessity turned into action. From the front lines, human commanders transmitted only one message back to the council. We protected our people. That was all. And in that simple statement, the galaxy learned something terrifying. Humanity did not fight for approval. They fought for survival. They fought for life itself. Other species began to understand. This was no mere war. This was a revelation. The Union, the Council, the entire galaxy had underestimated the one species that did not wait, that did not hesitate, that did not follow rules when lives were at stake. The lesson was clear. If humans are involved, hesitation is death. And the galaxy could not afford to hesitate. The silence after battle was deafening. Humanity had struck without permission. It had moved with precision, determination, and resolve. It had rewritten the rules of engagement without asking anyone. And the galaxy had watched. Union officials, analysts, and diplomats reviewed every report. Every calculation, every maneuver, every decision. The outcome was undeniable. Humans had achieved what the Council could not, what centuries of negotiation could not, and what entire fleets of other species had failed to accomplish. Colonies that had once been vulnerable now stood defended. Enemy fleets were crippled. Supply chains disrupted. The aggressors had no choice but to retreat, stunned into inaction. And humans, they did not rejoice. They walked among their people, tending to the wounded, repairing shattered habitats, restoring order where chaos had reigned. There was no celebration, only quiet pride. Their leaders observed from elevated positions, not for glory, but to ensure the survival of those they had sworn to protect. From the shadows, other species whispered, their respect tinged with fear. They had seen power before, but never like this. It was not strength alone that mattered. It was the courage to act, the clarity to make impossible choices, the resolve to carry them out without hesitation. Reports reached the highest levels of the Union. A council member admitted quietly, "We underestimated them entirely. They are not just another species. They are different." The galaxy began to understand a new rule, an unspoken truth. Humans would not wait. Humans would not hesitate. Humans would not comply blindly. And for the first time, civilizations that had long measured their power through protocols and regulations realized a simple fact. The smallest species, the one they had dismissed, had taught them the cost of hesitation. From this day forward, every calculation, every plan, every strategy in the galaxy had to account for humans. Not as allies, not merely as citizens of the Union, but as a force of necessity. A force that would act. A force that would protect life no matter the rules. And humanity, they continued their work. Quiet, steady, resolute, because their fight was never about glory. It was always about survival. And the galaxy had finally learned to respect it. The council convened. The galaxy had questions. And humans had answers, but not the kind anyone expected. Representatives from dozens of species crowded the grand chamber, towering above the humans as they always did. Protocols were cited. Regulations were recited. Threats were whispered. The room was tense, the air electric. "Your fleets acted without authorization," the council president said, voice cold and deliberate. "You have violated every rule of engagement." The humans stood together, small, calm, unflinching. "We acted to protect our people," a human leader replied. "Permission was not required for survival." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Shock, confusion, a growing sense of unease. "You risked destabilizing the Union," an alien diplomat shouted. "You disregarded centuries of law and order." The humans did not raise their voices. They did not flinch. They let their presence speak. Their unity, their resolve. "The laws you created are meant to preserve life," another human said. "We have preserved it. That is all that matters." The council struggled to respond. Logic could not categorize what had happened. Algorithms failed to predict the humans' actions. Historical precedent offered no guidance. For the first time, the Union realized that humanity's power was not measured by fleets, weapons, or territory. It was measured by courage and principle. The room fell silent. Every representative understood, in that moment, the magnitude of what had occurred. Humans had not broken the rules. They had transcended them, and the galaxy could not ignore them any longer. From that day forward, every protocol, every regulation, every law would be rewritten with one consideration. Humans will act, with or without permission. And when they did, the galaxy would watch, not with hope, not with fear, but with respect. The humans left the chamber quietly, not triumphant, not arrogant, not boastful, just aware, just ready, just human. The council returned to their chambers. This time, the meeting was different. The atmosphere was heavy, tense, but also respectful. Humanity had proven a lesson the galaxy could not ignore. Representatives debated, revised, and amended regulations. Procedures were rewritten. Rules of engagement were adjusted. And one point stood out, clearly and unambiguously. If humans are involved, delays are forbidden. Immediate action is mandatory. It was a quiet revolution, a law born not from fear, but from respect. Humans observed the changes without commentary. They did not celebrate. They did not boast. They simply acknowledged what had always been true. When survival demanded it, humans would act. And the galaxy had finally accepted it. Across star systems, the ripple of this new understanding spread. Alien species began to recalculate their strategies. They reviewed their fleets, their defenses, their alliances. The one constant they could no longer ignore was humanity. Humans had not sought power. They had not sought recognition. They had sought only to protect their own. And in doing so, they had reshaped the galaxy. From this day forward, no union regulation would ignore the one truth humanity had proven. Small, unassuming, and seemingly insignificant, humans were a force that could not be delayed, ignored, or underestimated. And in that truth lay the legacy of the species. Not the strongest, not the most numerous, not the most compliant, but the most determined. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And humanity, they simply moved forward, calm, steady, resolute, because their fight was never about glory. It was always about survival, and the galaxy had finally learned to respect it. Thank you for listening, for witnessing humanity's defiance. If you want more stories where the impossible is challenged, where courage defies fate, consider subscribing. Humanity may fall, but the stories never will.